Hello friends, welcome to the second lecture of our corporate valuation. And today we are going to discuss about the discounting cash flow method of valuation, which is the most popular method for the valuation. Whenever we do a valuation in case of merger or acquisition or even for the internal restructuring purpose, we do the valuation. Mostly we use this particular method for of valuation, DCF, discounting cash flow method. So we'll discuss today about the theory of discounted cash flow method as well as about the practical topic. So in our today's session, let us go to the little bit theory on account of the discounted value method. This is the most commonly, as I discussed with you, used method of valuation, universally accepted valuation method. It can be measured as a present value of future cash flow. So we have to find out the present value. International good practice guidance encourages to promote and use this particular method and NPV method to evaluate the business investment. Companies Act 2013 also requires valuation reports in case of issue of shares in case of restructuring. So it is also required by the Companies Act. Income tax authorities requires valuation in case of transfer of shares, and RBI issued amended guidelines for the valuation. Nowadays, even you need to be a certified valuer for giving the valuation amount. RBI amended pricing guidelines for pricing of unlisted shares of private companies, issue shares to non-resident by Indian company, and transfer of shares of an Indian company from a resident to non-resident. And they mostly updating these guidelines every year or every half year. The guidelines objective is to have fair practice by adopting this method. DCF value is most acceptable method in both the above two. IT rules also allow this method to value shares and arrive at the income under section 56(2). So whenever the income tax act also says that in case of the capital gain or any income from this particular thing, buy or sale of a share of a company or the buyback of shares, you need to follow the section 56(2). There also they describe this particular method of discounted cash. So we need to go for the components of the discounted cash flow. So there are few components. First of all, free cash flow estimation we need to work out. Then we need to work out the period of free cash flow estimation. Then growth of free cash flow of the firm. Then perpetuity value beyond FCF period. So there is a terminal value, and after that we have the infinity period of time where we expect a small changes in the what you say as a presentation or the projection. Then we have the weighted average cost of capital. We need to work out the WACC with reference to the cost of debt and cost of equity, risk-free return, risk premium, and calculate return. These four concepts we need to understand from the point of view of the WACC, which we will take up in the next slide. So here the cost of debt is the rate which is applicable for the debt instrument. The cost of equity is the equity which we will calculate the cost of equity. Then the risk-free return is the return which you get without any risk from the market. And risk premium is the difference between the risk-free return and um, the return or the interest rate with the risk. And there is a concept of beta where we understand the calculation of the beta rate for the working of the uh, discounted cash flow method. So just a definition of the free cash flow to the firm. This is the cash flow accruing to the firm as a whole. The free cash flow firm is available to both equity as well as debt holders. So if we look at the free cash flow for on account of equity, then it is a different. Then here, free cash flow firm is basically to the equity holders as well as the debt holders. This cash flow is the net cash flow derived after adjusting all expenses that contribute to the firm's productivity and growth. The FCFF approach states that the value of the firm is equal to the forecasted stream of the free cash flow. That is why I said we need to derive at the forecasting of 5 years, then there is a terminal year, then there will be a steady growth of the firm. And that will be discounted with the WSSC, and always it will be a post-tax. So we will not take any figure pre-tax, we take the figure of the post. This is also called as the interest exclusion principle. So in case of the discounted cash flow method, we always follow the interest exclusion principle, and we work out the this particular thing free cash from the firm. This is a step which we need to follow whenever we calculate the discounted cash flow method for the firm. So first we'll find out the operating profit, which is called as the EBIT. We will not take PAT or PBT. We will take EBIT. Interest is to be excluded. Taxes, for whatever the taxes is there, we will calculate the taxes. Then it is called as a NOPAT, net operating profit less adjusted taxes. So EBIT minus taxes is called as a NOPAT. Then we will add back the depreciation, because depreciation is a charge and not the expenses. We add the amortization or amortization of land or non-cash expenses like goodwill, etc. This is called as a gross cash flow. Out of this gross cash flow, we will have to reduce the investment during that particular year or those particular stream of years investment in the fixed asset, and to arrive at the particular turnover. And then we will reduce the increase or decrease in the working capital. If there is an increase, then we will reduce. If there is a decrease, then we will add to the cash flow. This will give you the free cash flow for the firm. After this, whatever the discounting factor is there, we will discount with this particular cash flow to arrive at the particular valuation of the firm. Now, coming to the free cash flow to the equity holders. So FCFE approach states that the value of equity is equal to the forecasted stream of FCFE. So in earlier case, we said the forecasted stream of the FCFE, which is discounted by the cost of equity. So earlier we have discounted with the WACC. So cost of debt plus cost of equity. Here we will discount with the cost of equity. We can also use FCFE to determine FCFE. After subtracting interest payment from FCFE, we get the FCFE. So if we look at here, so if we reduce the interest from EBIT and then we follow this particular method, we'll get the FCFE. FCFE is available to the firm, both shareholder as well as the debt holders, whereas FCFE is available only to the shareholder. Interest is taken as expenses. So in earlier we have seen that interest is excluded. Here the interest is taken as expense. So how do we arrive at the cash flow to equity? The similar kind of stuff, but earlier we have taken EBIT, now we'll take PAT. So first of all, we'll take PAT, then add depreciation, then amortization of expenses, then non-cash expenses. By doing this, we'll get the cash flow, gross cash flow. Then same, we will reduce increase in fixed assets for that year and for the stream of year. We will reduce increase in working capital for that year and from the stream of the year. And less payment of loans. So here one more addition is payment of loan. Why payment of loan is there? Because we are arriving the free cash flow to the equity and not the debt. So whatever payable to the debt holders, we are reducing from here. So to arrive at the free cash flow to the equity. Now we arrive at the discounted cash flow method. Now let us check the weighted average cost of capital, how it is worked out. So weighted average cost of capital is debt divided by debt plus equity multiplied by cost of debt multiplied by 1 minus tax plus equity divided by debt plus equity into the cost of equity. So if we do this, we'll get the WACC. Now what is RF here? Now we need to understand what is the cost of debt first, and then we need to understand the cost of equity. So cost of debt is always pre-tax, because we are doing 1 minus 2, and the cost of equity is post-tax cost of equity, because there is no tax on the dividend. Cost of equity, the formula is RF, risk-free premium or risk-free return, plus beta multiplied by Rn minus Rn. So market rate minus the risk-free return, plus STRP. STRP is a specific company risk. If you have, then you need to take it. Now beta is industry risk. If you are in a pharma industry, in today's scenario, there is very less risk. But if you are in a garment industry, then in today's case, there is a risk because of this pandemic. Similarly, if you are into some diamond industry, today again the market is not going so there is a risk. So depending on the situation or the industry, the risk will increase or decrease. That is how we calculate the risk-free return and the cost of tax for the discounted cash flow. Similarly, cost of debt is very simple, as we discussed. If you borrow the debt at a rate of 12% and it lies in 30% tax rate, then we have a 12% multiplied by 1 minus P is the tax, so 8.4% tax that we will take for the WACC. This is a small example for cost of equity. If your RF is 6% and your RM is 10% and beta is 2, then your cost of equity for the firm is 6% plus 2, 10 minus 6 is equal to 14. This is how we calculate the cost of equity. Beta, I have already explained that beta is the industry risk, and it is symbolic presentation of the risk of the particular cash flow or the particular industry or particular company. Terminal value, as I said, we normally take 5 to 7 years for the project period. Then there is a termination of the period. Then we will have an infinity period. So between the original projection of 5 to 7 years and the infinity period, we have a terminal period. So that is called as a terminal value, terminal year, and of the value of that particular year is called as a terminal value. This calculated as every reason has a perpetuity, because we know that nothing will grow at the same rate for beyond 5 to 7 years. So there is a perpetuity. So terminal value is the firm's value at the end of the explicit project period. So we normally say that 5 to 7 years is my explicit period. So after that, whatever the value comes, it's called as terminal value. It takes into account firm's value for operations beyond explicit forecast period. So terminal value is equal to FCFF last year. So N is the last year. So if I take the explicit period is 5 years, then 5 plus 1. Divided by WACC minus G. G is the growth rate we expect after the study growth. So perpetuity growth, what we call it. So we reduce that. So whatever the value we get, that is called as the terminal value, and that value we will discount with the. It is already discounted here with the WACC. So I'll give an example. If FCFF for the last forecast year is 1000, WACC is 18%, terminal growth is 3%, then my terminal value is 1000 divided by 18, WACC minus G, 3% is equal to 687. So perpetuity formula does not work when G is more than WACC. And this is very rarely possible, because G never be more than the WACC unless there is a specific condition or situation. This is how we come to value of that particular thing. Now we come to enterprise value. So what we do is we total up all the PV of FCFF during the forecasted period. Then we add the terminal value, PV of the terminal value. We add cash and bank balances, and we add the investments, present market value. So we get the enterprise value. And equity value is enterprise value minus debt, because we don't work for the debt. So the equity value is whatever the enterprise value is, just reduce the debt, so you get the equity value. Now limitation. Although it is very acceptable thing, universally accepted method of the valuation, there are certain limitations. So limitations are it is based on the expected future cash flow. So now anyone can give any projections and we will work out the value. If someone wants to increase the value, they will increase the projections. If someone wants to decrease the value, then someone will decrease the projections. So we need to understand the what are the baseline or the assumptions when the person is taking the projection. It fails to give value when business is in a distressed state. So when the business is in distressed state or that there is no growth, it doesn't give you good value. Economic boom or the recession is ignored. The difficulty to get real value with unutilized assets. In some cases, difficult to get the expected rate of return, possibly. Perpetuity is estimated basis and can alter the value of business. If perpetuity growth is higher, the value will increase and vice versa. So if my in my earlier example, if my G is 4%, my value will increase. If my G is 2%, my value is 6. So there is a inverse relationship here. If my perpetuity growth is higher, then my value will increase and vice versa. Estimation of net working capital and investment also affect the valuation. Because why? This is because we reduce the, I'll just tell you here, we reduce what? We reduce the investment as well as the working capital. Yeah. So what we do is we reduce the increase in fixed asset as well as the increase in working capital. By doing this, if there is an estimation problem, then or the issue in the estimation or not rightly judge the estimation, we will not get the correct value of the under the DCF valuation method. So let us take one example. I have given 3-year profitability statement. So PAT is given, PBT is given, and the operating profit is given. The interest and depreciation is showing separate. And the balance sheet is given for year 1, year 2, year 3. Where we have the block of asset, investment, net working capital, and there is an increase you can see here. 100, 100, 100 every year. There is an asset net block is 2,700. So every year there is an increase of 200 in the fixed asset. Interest is 100, 90, and 80, and tax rate is 40%. These are the important components why I'm just elaborating here. And depreciation is 100 plus 120 and 130 year on year basis. So I'm doing the free cash flow to the firm based on this particular data. My operating profit is 570 and 700. You can see from here 570 and 700. Adjusted taxes 40%, just 40% of this. Then I have a NOPAT of 342, profit minus the tax. At depreciation, whatever I have did, there is no non-cash expenses, so there is zero. So I have a gross cash flow of 462 and 560. I have an increase in working capital 100, 100, and capex is increased by 320. How 320? There is an increase by 200 and there is a depreciation here 120. So 200 plus 120, and here we have 2,900 and 200 plus 130, so 330. So this is how we come to the capex estimation. So free cash flow of the firm is 452 and 120. So this is how the example of free cash flow we work out, and then we apply the DCF method technology of the discounting factor. We get the valuation of the firm. So friends, today, although this is the theory from practical thing which we have discussed today for DCF calculation, we'll take one practical example how we will do the calculation in Excel, and we will work out the real valuation of a company by following some example by some author, maybe Kapil or maybe some other author. We'll work out the two-stage valuation method, because mostly people follow two-stage method unless there is some difficulty in following two-stage or there is some transition phase also in the projection. So they normally follow the three-stage valuation method. We follow the two-stage valuation method on Excel. Practically, we'll work on the Excel. So stay tuned for my videos on this corporate valuation. We will be having another now 7 lectures or 6 lectures, and we'll cover practicals as well as we cover the brand valuation and other private company valuation also. So thank you very much, friends, and we will coming up with another video on the corporate valuation maybe in a week's time. Thank you very much.